to behave like the SDF supporters of the...
There are some CPDM, initially you said some CPDM people might have voted for the SDF.
Yes.
And which means that the Anglophone problem is pinching.
Yeah.
If that's the situation, then it's pinching in the Southwest as well.
That is true.
Because the analysis holds sway for the Northwest, but it doesn't hold for the Southwest. Why? That point, that case in point.
It is difficult to understand, but don't forget that the CPDM, the CPDM also understood that they were in this situation and they fought very hard. You know,
in the Southwest.
You could be an unpopular candidate, but you still fight in an election and win, because it is winning election is not only about popularity. It's fighting to win the election. There's popularity and there's winnability, as I should put it.
What gets into winnability? Okay. Prof, as a political scientist, how would you explain? Because if it were the Anglophone problem, as he points out, then the two Anglophone regions would have gone to the opposition, be it SDF or another opposition party. But it wasn't the same situation in the Southwest.
Exactly.
Yes.
That shows that the Anglophone crisis did not affect the results of the election as perhaps some expected it to. That's why you have two different results in the two English-speaking regions. Mm-hmm. But what I know is that in this election, as you know, the constituencies were the regions, and we have 10 regions. And in the last parliament 5 years ago, you know that the SDF had the West and
the Adamawa regions, yeah.
And that boosted their number of membership in the Senate. Well, this time around, or 5 years later, that was not to be the case. But it was expected, and I knew that. I mean, the SDF will put up a fight. After all, I mean, it's a party like any other party, and they understood that it was not going to be as easy in 2018 as it was in 2013, because in 2013 they understood that in the field the CPDM was absent in Adamawa, in two regions. So the advantage was there, and the advantage went to them. But I knew that in 2018, I expected, and that's why I would say that I wasn't surprised at the results, because I knew that even if come rain or shine, the SDF or the other political parties, what surprised me, if there's a surprise, is that the other political parties did not put up a fight in the same way as the SDF did, because the SDF understood that winning in the West and in Adamawa, as was the case 5 years ago, was going to be very, very difficult. And so they put up their fight and targeted one region where they thought, even if it is what, they could come out with a victory. They could. And the CPDM also put up a fight in that region, and that region happened to be the Northwest. Why the Northwest? We shouldn't forget that not only was is the chairman from the Northwest, that's his base. At least you should give the chief make the chief comfortable where he is. So they put up a fight also in other places in the littoral, in the Southwest, and in other places.
Would you say that the CPDM gave the Northwest to the SDF?
No, the CPDM did not give the Northwest. In fact, the CPDM put up a good fight. I mean, the CPDM campaigners and the campaign organization put up a good fight in the Northwest. There is no doubt about it, and we should give them that credit. But we should say that in the Northwest, the SDF strategy, you know, was more successful.
There were press reports.
Because the difference was only 21 votes.
Yes, there were
at the end of the day. And we could tell why the 21 vote difference. And as I said earlier in another medium, there were both tactical errors and the fact that the SDF took advantage of these tactical errors and was able
Tactical errors on the part of the CPDM?
Yeah, on the part of CPDM.
Yeah,
and can
we have some of those tactical errors?
Oh, the tactical errors you could, I mean, when I say insufficiencies or weaknesses, could be, for example, choice of candidate in from certain areas in the constituency, the manner in which the campaign was carried out in terms of campaign messaging, and the fact that there was another actor at play in the Northwest who was no small person. That is the Alhaji Lawan Bako of the UDP party, who also sought to take advantage of any differences or lapses.
Would you call him a destabilization?
Well, he was playing the role of a spoiler. I'm not that. He's a good politician, but he played the role of a spoiler in this competition in the Northwest. So both forces put up a good fight.
He's supposed to be the ally of the CPDM, but he worked against you.
Well, you know, we are quite Republican and as a party, and we're quite democratic. We understood that in this competition, in this battle, particularly in the Northwest constituency, that battle will be fierce, and that's why the campaign agents and the organization fought fiercely. And if they come up short by 21 votes, they don't. They would not say that the SDF cheated. The SDF did not cheat. We understood that they won. They merited the victory.
But we hear that your representative in the vote counting committee did not sign or walked out in protest at the regional level.
Yes, he was in his right to do so, waiting to hear from his hierarchy. And as the CPDM hierarchy took note of the fact that its representative did not sign at the level of the region. And then but as you know, okay, the hierarchy in its judgment, in its analysis, and concluded that
we should give that
there
to
was
the
no
SDF?
basis, not that they give, there was no basis in law or in fact for the party to put up a petition against the SDF. So in many ways, democratically speaking, obviously the SDF would look at that as being a gesture of goodwill, not necessarily goodwill, but you know, being a good player, a fair. This is fair play. The CPDM demonstrated fair play in not filing a petition to show that they didn't want to take away anything from the merits of the SDF winning in that constituency. Okay. Not that its forces were weak or that they didn't do a bad job. The CPDM forces, the campaign forces, did a very good job, as I say. They put up a very good fight. Okay. And but at the end of the day, fair play counts, and in the sense of, or within the framework of fair play, we give credit to the SDF.
All right. I see you people itching so much. Yes.
Yes. Yes. I have a lot of issues with what
you say. Be fast so we can exhaust our question. No, just go ahead. Go ahead.
My point
go ahead.
Is.
Instead of arguing unnecessarily.
It is not a fair assessment to say that the SDF won in the Northwest because the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front is from Northwest, and somebody there is like a phone, or that he could not have been beaten in his own region. Except we have very short memories. We know that in the 2013 senatorial elections, he was even a candidate, and his party was beaten in Northwest. That dismisses completely that argument. So I think that this tendency of trying to regionalize the SDF, thinking that the SDF is a party of the Northwest, is something that has become outdated. We should look for new strategies to run down the SDF. The second point I want to raise is, it is incorrect to say that the Southwest is the SDF lost in the Southwest because it doesn't have the type of strong love for the SDF as it is in the Northwest. If you look at the statistics, we are trying on this table to make a very abnormal election look normal. If you look at the statistics that were given officially by the Constitutional Council, with the national rate of abstention, number of abstention 210, 150 of those abstentions alone come from the Southwest. And nobody can make an objective analysis of what happened in the Southwest without taking in consideration the very strong role that insecurity played, because the level of insecurity in the Southwest is greatly higher than that in the Northwest. And so many people who, because I was on the field, I was an actor in the BLM, many people who would have come and given a sanctioned vote were intimidated with the level of insecurity, and they stayed in their homes. For example, in the BLM.
No, don't give examples.
No, I just
go to the point.
Good. That is to say that we cannot, if we are sidelining the insecurity factor, which played very seriously in the Southwest.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, you have.
If all of the 150 votes that abstained were given to the SDF.
Yes.
Will they make the difference?
Good question. That was insecurity that pushed people to abstain was one of the factors. I'm listing the factors. The second factor...
No, I asked, you didn't...
No, that is to say it came to, if we had 150, then
votes,
150 votes, with the other factors that I want to tell you that played against us because of the machinations of the CPD on the field.
You've not said those other factors.
Because you don't want me to say them.
I gave you the opportunity.
I want to say them. I was saying that the other factors, for example, how can you imagine with the insecurity in Manu? So many councillors have escaped, and some are even in refugee camps. But look at the rate, the voting rate that came from Manu. And because of the insecurity in Southwest, some of our polling agents, just like many Elecam officials, were too scared to even go and monitor what was happening. And so the CPDM, with the backing of the administration and the Elecam people, everybody knows that Elecam is a subsection of CPDM. They doctored those results the way they did. We were not able to control those elections in some of the areas because our own people were afraid for their lives. They ran like the councillors themselves for their dear lives. And so the results came the way they had prepared them to come out. And we had facts that we were supposed to challenge these things at the level of the Supreme Court, but unfortunately we were not given the chance to challenge those things because they were given.
When you say what you say, it's as if you're coming from outside Cameroon.
Why?
Because you were given the opportunity to put up a petition on what happened in the Southwest at the level of the Constitutional Council, right?
Yes.
If 20, I don't know how many years after, the Social Democratic Front cannot be able to put up an acceptable petition at the level of the Constitutional Council,
we assume that responsibility. And if you followed our intervention immediately after that, that is an internal party matter that will be dealt with because we ourselves regretted the fact that the petition was drafted the way it was drafted. After having said that, and I say that we are going to handle the matter at the level of the party, but after having said that, I doubt whether if the petition had gone through and open for debate in court, whether we would have had our day because our petition, pre-electoral petition, followed the same thing. No, but from experience. From experience.
You've said what you wanted to say, right? Okay, can we go to Doctor? You wanted to react to what you were saying.
Well, my reaction is to think that the reasons we can be given, as we have been trying to do now, for why the SDF lost perhaps in the Southwest and one in the Northwest, maybe
in the crisis situation.
In a crisis situation, of course, we know that somewhere along the line the crisis might have had a role to play in all of that. But the impression I personally have is that it looks like we are moving towards an era of political arrangement. What do I mean by this? It looks like we are in an era of democratic detente. That is, for the sake of democratic conformity, it is necessary that in an election like this one, all the seats should not be swept by the ruling party, by the national ruling party. So
what was given to us? We didn't win.
That's not what I'm trying to say, because if there is opportunity to rig elections, for example, it's for everybody. And election rigging, election cheating, let me put it that way, is like a political electoral tool to win over the adversary. So if there was insecurity in the Southwest, I don't see why only the CPDM could take advantage of the insecurity situation. Perhaps the SDF would have also taken advantage of it.
Who commands the troops?
Let me land, sir.
The CPDM administration.
Let me land, sir.
The risk was for everybody.
No, but who
for everybody?
Who protects the troops?
Objectively, I think objectively it was for everybody.
What are we talking about?
It would have even been more risk for the CPDM in the Southwest than the SDF, because in a crisis situation like this, we want to tentatively believe that the Southwest will likely sympathize with the SDF than the CPDM.
Compare the results that came from Bangem with the insecurity that where were those results prepared? Why the other people were scared? The SDF were scared, and most of the voters were scared. They sat somewhere because Elekam and administration.
Why should it be the SDF that were being scared?
No, because Elekam and the Elekam and CPD are protected by the security forces. They sit somewhere and doctor those things. We know how these things happen. We cannot come here and theorize. Let's speak the truth to people, to Cameroonians, because I don't think we are here to please somebody. Because Joe, is very important what I want to say. Just
everything you are saying.
Just a second, please. When we come here and try to, as I said earlier, to make a very abnormal election.
You are here to speak for your party and the opposition.
I am speaking for my brothers and sisters in the Southwest and Northwest who are undergoing a lot of pain, and which they imposed this election on them, and the election did not reflect the rethinking of the Southwest now, because it will be a serious aberration for somebody to say that the senators that came from the Southwest are the people that the Southwest now love, that they have put up a fight for them, and they are the people that they are willingly given to represent them in the next 5 years in the Senate. These people on the ground are listening.
Okay, fine. Can I say, or assume, that the municipal and parliamentary elections will be different, because at that level, the common man in the Southwest will be voting what he thinks, not the grand electors, quote and unquote.
I fear, with the security situation on the ground, I fear that if we go into the municipal and that is popular elections in the Southwest particularly, without resolving the main issues that is making the people extremely angry as they are, it will be very terrible there. Because I was on the ground.
Maybe answered himself. I wanted to say that I'm from the Southwest, incidentally.
Just like me.
It is true that, it is true that there were areas where people did not like the candidates that were put up by the CPDM, for instance. But in the CPDM, like I understood, there's what they call party discipline, and some people outrightly said, I heard somebody said on record that but for me, I will not vote for this candidate. But since I belong to this party, the party instructs us to vote this way, and I'll vote that way. So it was not a popular election.
Fine.
But what I noticed in this election is that even the SDF, I was in the Constitutional Council when they were looking at the petitions. I realized that the SDF considered defeat. Professor Kale was there. They admitted.
Of course,
you were there. I saw you. Of course, they admitted their errors. They admitted their errors.
Passed the judgment. They admitted their errors. What did you want us to do?
How would you explain that the NUDP that went in for the election in all the 10 regions scored that bad?
Zero. They have a lot of work to do. That's what is very clear, that as an opposition party, if they have to learn something from the results of this election, it is that there's a lot more work for them to do in terms of campaign organization, campaign strategy, selection of candidates, putting together their messaging. Because it's one thing to say, I want to compete here, but there's some groundwork. There's some groundwork you need to do. If you don't do that groundwork, the likelihood is that you will not come out well. But I just wanted to respond to what our brother said from the SDF. If one doubts the legitimacy and the legality or the validity of the just ended senatorial elections, then what they are really saying is that the 7 seats won by the SDF, they didn't merit those 7 seats. But because we believe in fair play in the CPDM, we give credit where credit is due. And it is important also, if you use numbers. We couldn't say they were not normal, because if you say they were not normal, it means that even the 7 seats you won were not normal.
I'm saying that if they were normal, we would have had majority of senators in the Senate.
No, could you have? You couldn't have had, because you didn't have majority of electoral college members.
You competed in only 5 regions.
The issue is that they started the election with municipal councillors who
let me land by saying this.
But you did not protest to the Constitutional Council about what you're saying.
Well, the protest did not hold. But let me say this, just to say.
No, we did.
I was the campaign manager in Kupe Maningobe division, because I was the head of the divisional campaign. By law, by text, I was the head of the divisional campaign. And in our planning in the division, we took into consideration the possibility of the issue of insecurity. Not only did we take into consideration the possibility of the issue of insecurity, we also took into consideration the possibility that some actors, whoever they may be, would not want the election to take place. So we, in our campaigns strategizing, we took into consideration already those factors, and the result was that, I can tell you, the result was that of the 84 electors that the Kupe Maningobe division counts, more than 50% braved it and took the risk and took gunfire. This is not something that is fabricated. Took gunfire and survived that gunfire, not only on the way to Bangem because they were ambushed, but in Bangem itself, when these forces sought to take away or steal the ballot box by storming the polling station. But nevertheless, that did not deter the determination of the councillors. They did vote, and they voted 100% CPDM.
Okay.
So if they could take the risk, others could take the same risk.
I wanted to talk on the UNDP.
On the NUDP.
The NUDP started very well in the early 90s, but over time we see them relocating to probably the North region, just the North. They are localized.
But they had candidates in all the 10 regions.
Yes, they had candidates in all the 10 regions. You see these candidates only during elections. The UNDP is not present. You don't see them on the field. You don't see them in the South. You don't see them anywhere unless during election periods. And then there's a problem with the UNDP when it comes to sharing of the spoils. They go back to their base. They forget about the people who fight for them in other areas.
Okay.
So over time, they have lost their support in all the other areas, and they are just left in the... and then, Joe, I noticed that in this election, and this is something that the government may have to look into, the law on elections does not look into issues of force majeure. How are elections supposed to be managed in situations of war, for example? If the SDF petition had matured, if it had been entertained, the Constitutional Council would have realized that there's a legal void. Because people did not go to vote in Bangem, for instance. It was because of insecurity, because there was a war situation there. And how do you treat this kind of situation? It is not found in the law.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe they will be thinking about that or make some other interpretation. How would you look at what happened? Does this set the stage for the upcoming elections, given that this is an electoral year? We have 3 other elections coming up, or 4.
Yes, definitely it does, because I think parties, just like my co-panelist was saying a while ago with regards to the NUDP, parties now have to think of developing new winning strategies in elections. So I think that these elections is a kind of training ground for future elections. They'll have to think over their strategies on how to go about winning adversaries and all of that. So it's quite important. I think the senatorial elections is quite timely. It's early enough, and the parties have to get back to their think tanks and try to see how to strategize better, especially the opposition, the National Opposition Party, to strategize better. And
after everything, the SDF is still the second strongest party in the country.
Definitely still the second, but the performance in general has dwindled, because in the last senatorial elections the SDF had 14. Yes, that's the West. And now
if the President of the Republic were to give you people 7 appointments,
and it's quite important.
Before I answer your question, let me clear this issue. The whole wide world has heard, at least Prof has confirmed, that during the day of the...
No, just go to my question. We know what happened.
No, this is important. The point I want to raise, because we cannot allow it go, that there was serious gunfire fighting in Bangladesh. And curiously, why even the defense forces have a lot of problems mastering those people, civilians who were civilian voters could brave the gunfire,
of course, and
go and vote and come back without everybody being hurt. We don't know how that happened because we said that these results were just arranged somewhere and sent forward. The second point I want to say is that whether we like it or not, some of us want to insist that the law is hard but must be respected, must also push the Constitutional Council, and we are waiting for them there to say that those councillors, 100, 200 and something, who did not vote, the law has to be applied.
No, there was force majeure.
Force majeure is not in the law. Read the law. There is no provision for force majeure. Right. We don't apply the law halfway and leave it halfway. Then coming to your question.
You see, you've chopped.
But I have to clear those. I better not answer the question and clear those issues because it's very important.
Okay.
Yeah, very important.
I was asked to come to my question then.
Yes, your question was whether if they were appointed.
No, just answer the question. I asked it already.
Yes, that's why I want to be sure whether I understood the question. If your question was whether if we are appointed, we will accept. Is that your question?
Yes.
That one will be decided by the party hierarchy.
Okay. TK, you're welcome. Reactions online?
Yeah, we've had a good number of reactions online, especially as the program has just resumed after the campaign's break. Let's just go straight away with this one from Mary Kilashin. You say more time should be given for people to speak on the program. Cameroonians should not elect people based on their wealth or family links, but on their competence. Ngole Njike Kopi says, I don't expect much from the elections, and as most of those who are elected enjoy their huge salaries and forget about their different constituencies which they are supposed to develop. Jules Bokomo says the elections are over and we are waiting to see what the senators will do on the field. Franca Tanko says, when will elections of regional councillors be organized in the country? And we'll conclude with this one from Emil Nango, who says the crisis in the country should be resolved before the next elections are organized in Cameroon.
Thank you very much. I know, keep sending your reactions. Where possible, we'll be able to react to. Yes, Prof, you wanted to say something.
What I'd like to say here is that elections from the standpoint of the electoral law, well, from the Constitution, as has just been said here by Steve and others, is that there is a legal void. And wherever there's a legal void, I mean, there are agencies, institutions that have been put in place to decide or to make a difference. And in this case, we have the Constitutional Council that decides on these sorts of situations. But from what I know from the history of elections, electoral calendars do not depend upon the socio-political context given in a particular area or in a particular country. What electoral calendar does is that it is implemented, it is enforced, and it is executed as programmed.
Okay.
This is democracy, and in our case, we know that if you look around the world, electoral calendars are executed, they are implemented, regardless of the socio-political context. Examples are just next to us. Nigeria had its elections and will have its elections, yes. But there's war in the northeast. It doesn't stop it from happening.
Exactly. So
this is
what we want to thank. Thank you so much.
No political situation to stop the elections from taking place.
Our time is up, so we cannot do otherwise. So thank you very much for watching. Since the program has resumed, we might come back to this topic because it sounds very interesting, given that the President of the Republic has the constitutional right to appoint the 30 other senators. So it's a running story. We'll certainly come back to it. Until when we meet again, have a nice time on CRTV and stay with us if you can.